According to reports, Scott Peterson's team has requested 600 pieces of new evidence not originally available to the jury in his trial. Will this evidence lead to a new trial, a new alibi, or even a new motive?
Mr. Peterson, can you both see and hear the proceedings?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Your Honor.
And do we have your consent to appear via Zoom this morning?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appearing remotely from prison, Scott Peterson answered a couple questions from the judge Tuesday in San Mateo County Superior Court. It's from the Los Angeles Innocence Project.
I know these times are busy, but if you do have a second to click the like button, it really does help me out get this to more people. But what if this evidence actually supports his theory? Laci witnessed a burglary across the street.
In 2020, Peterson's death sentence was reduced to life without parole. Now backed by the LA Innocence Project, he's petitioning for a new trial, arguing it was burglars robbing the home across the street who killed Laci.
I believe that Laci went over there to see what was going on. That's the first mistake.
Is going to see a burglary across the street, run over there and confront the guys doing the burglary.
This morning, 2 decades after going to prison for the murder of his pregnant wife, Laci, Scott Peterson is breaking his silence.
I wish I could say I was stronger, but all that stuff did take a toll on me.
In the new Peacock docuseries, Face to Face, the 51-year-old speaks out from behind prison walls, arguing police ignored critical evidence that exonerates him, and describes in disbelief the moment he was convicted.
Oh, hi, police. Can you guys come? I think there's a burglary going on across the street. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it just doesn't seem like Commando. She's going to take on these burglars.
I was still expecting to go home that day. I was staggered by it.
Peterson was sentenced to death in 2004 for the 2002 murders of his wife Laci and their unborn son Connor, after their bodies washed up in San Francisco Bay, near where he said he'd gone fishing months earlier.
People often think that circumstantial evidence isn't as strong as direct evidence. But what if I told you that circumstantial evidence in the mind of a juror is just as valid? It sometimes is even more important than direct evidence. So it's about the bigger picture. You know, Scott's motive, his opportunity, his suspicious behavior, like dyeing his hair, having a stash of cash, and let's not forget about his mistress, Amber Frey. He was telling her that Laci was dead, even though she was just missing.
The DA's office argued today that Peterson was found guilty in 2004 with overwhelming circumstantial evidence.
There are certainly times that I become a wreck.
At times emotional, Peterson pushing back on the portrayal of him as an uncaring and detached husband.
That would be a red flag. And so all of these things adding up, what appears to be very suspicious behavior.
They said that you killed Laci because you didn't want to be married and you didn't want to be a father.
That's so offensive. It's so disgusting.
I certainly regret cheating on Laci.
Why did you keep talking to Amber Frey after Laci disappeared?
I was searching for my family, stay in contact with Amber, I thought, and she would get into the picture, complicate, ruin the search.
New evidence will exonerate San Diego native Scott Peterson, convicted for the 2002 murder of his wife and unborn son.
The Los Angeles Innocence Project is now involved in the case, and I think that they're going to be making some constitutional claims. Their claim is that he was denied his constitutional rights for several things. I'm thinking one is going to be probably a claim that the case was sensationalized in the media and that they couldn't get a fair trial. And then number two is this new evidence.
Scott Peterson's attorneys argue that the items, if tested for DNA, could prove his innocence in the murder of Laci Peterson and the couple's unborn son, Connor, nearly 22 years ago.
The court granted post-conviction rights for him to do these things with the Los Angeles Innocence Project. And I guess a lot of new evidence is going to be turned over to him that he originally maybe didn't have access to or was not allowed to come into the original trial. Like 600 new pieces of evidence that he claims he was entitled to all along that should have potentially gone into the original case.
La Jolla, 2003. His hair dyed blonde, Scott Peterson arrested in front of Torrey Pines Golf Course in the disappearance of his wife, Laci Peterson, 8 months pregnant. The body of Laci discovered days before along San Francisco Bay, the disappearance and murder trial capturing national headlines.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Scott Lee Peterson, guilty.
Peterson found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. Then, last August, the state Supreme Court overturning the death sentence over jury selection issues, setting the stage for a retrial of the sentencing phase.
I was so angry at the media because the reports just weren't factual. I strive not to show emotion in court because I didn't want to, see them break me.
He also speaks out about his former girlfriend, Amber Fry, whose testimony was crucial to establishing a motive.
There's also a claim out there that Laci's watch went missing shortly after this and then was pawned. So is there going to be something that ties into that? Maybe the burglar somehow got her watch and then pawned it. How would they connect this watch to her? So there's motions for new evidence, including DNA testing, additional DNA testing, which is a very common thing that the Innocence Projects do, and they do successfully. I don't know if that's going to be successful here, but a lot of times that's what overturns these cases is new DNA technology and new DNA testing.
The trial court also ordered to look at whether the verdict should be set aside because a juror didn't disclose her involvement in legal proceedings. If Peterson does get a new trial, supporters say they'll put forth new evidence.
Evidence is a 15.5-inch piece of duct tape found on Laci Peterson's pants at the time of her autopsy. The ruling comes after a long day in court where attorneys argued for the testing of more than a dozen items. The judge denied testing on all the other items, including parts of a mattress found in a burned-out van around the same time of Laci Peterson's disappearance.
And tried to intervene, and then bam, she's taken and then stuffed into a van, and her body is then dumped in the marina to frame Scott. How would they know where he was fishing? It just seems like quite the coincidence. But that could be the theory coming, up here if he's going to try to get a new trial. And a lot of times burglars are not going to turn it into a kidnapping situation, right? They either going in to do a burglary, they're going to do their business, and they're going to get out. A lot of times they're not going to elevate it to a murder, a kidnapping murder situation, because it's just a totally different set of circumstances. It's crime against property versus crime against a person.
In her ruling, the judge cited that most of the items were either not in police custody, were not in a condition to be tested, or would not have changed the outcome of his conviction at the time of the trial. Another Peterson hearing is expected in July. Back to you.
I want you to think about this. Take a step back. Look at the facts without the noise. Focus on the case and not the sensationalism. This isn't about Scott Peterson. It's about Laci and Connor. It's about their pursuit for the truth and justice for everyone involved. For that to get me to sway, I'm going to be needing some very strong evidence for that to change my opinion of what happened in the case. So let's say the judge takes that theory seriously, allows for a new trial. Just because you get a new trial does not mean a new outcome if that trial takes place. So in my opinion, the state of California still has a very strong case. The Supreme Court has already upheld the conviction, is my understanding. For this to get a new trial, there would have to be some pretty compelling reason to do that. And we'll be following this case. Make sure to subscribe.